Hello, and welcome to Forging Yourself Forward. If you've seen anything that I've been posting on YouTube in terms of the shorts, you see that every day I really try to anchor what I do in a walk each and every day, regardless of the weather outside, how I'm feeling, as a way of grounding myself, kind of physically forging myself forward, moving forward as I'm walking, as kind of a metaphor for trying to make myself progress in life as well as just growing as a person. And as important as I think physical exercise is, and I do think it's very important, I consider it the foundation of basically everything that I do and how I know that I'm at least starting to move myself forward and make myself better. And that's the whole purpose of this channel. I also want to incorporate another aspect that I think is not only crucial, but I think that every single person needs to be doing in order to make themselves better. And that's not only reading, but absorbing the books that you're reading and applying them in daily life so that you can make yourself better and you can really forge yourself into a new path. You'd be surprised where some of these books may lead you. And I'm just going to go over a few books that have had profound impacts on me. I try to learn at least one thing from any book I'm reading, but some books have had an even larger effect on me, and I just want to go over a few of them with you. So the first two books that I want to show you are books that I read every single day. I actually read a passage from their daily books. So the first one is called The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, and the second one is The Daily Laws by Robert Greene. Both of these books I find to really help me in the morning to get my head right. When I first wake up, maybe I'm groggy, maybe I'm tired, maybe I don't really want to do some of the things that are on my agenda that day. But I find that reading a single page from each one of those books on the corresponding day tends to put me in the right frame of mind. And what I tend to do right after reading each one of those pages is actually I have a journal here that I keep, and I write down just my thoughts in the morning, anything that struck me, anything that's kind of on my mind, anything that maybe was bothering me. That way at least I get a pen to paper, and sometimes you'd be surprised when you just start writing, you may lead to something that you didn't even know was underneath the surface. And I have found that to be incredibly valuable, especially not only in calming me down or getting me in the right frame of mind, but also sometimes you work out those problems that are in your head that maybe are weighing on you, causing some stress, causing some unneeded anxiety. I find when you get them on paper, they kind of they leave you. It's kind of a magical thing, pen and paper. I don't know how else to explain it. I wish I could, but I would give it a try if you've ever considered doing journaling every day or something like that. Create a practice where every morning you're kind of doing something, and you'd be surprised at how beneficial you'll find it. It's something you may actually look forward to, like I do each day. So the first book I want to talk about, or the first book that really had a profound impact, and these are not in order, it's just books that I have found to be very, very influential and very helpful for me in teaching me things. The first one is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I kind of stumbled upon this book. I don't exactly remember how I found it initially, but when I read it, it kind of surprised me in a lot of ways. First, I had a tendency to always believe that it's like an all or nothing mindset, and either you completely change every single thing that you're doing to move forward and make yourself better, or you're just going to fail and go backwards. And in reading the book, what you realize is that real success, real change actually occurs incrementally, and it takes a long period of time. But it's those small little changes that build on the things actually lead to bigger rewards. It's one of the reasons why I go walking every day. What I have found is that habit, that extra, say, mile or 2 miles, over a long period of time has really improved my health, especially over the last 3-4 months. And I would strongly recommend anybody who's looking to improve themselves, pick up a copy, borrow a copy, whatever you need to do. And it really talks about those small incremental habits that you do day to day that really can lead to big things. It's the same idea as compound interest when it comes to investing. You can take that principle to your own life, and you'd be surprised at how far it'll get you with just a few small changes. Give it a look. The second book that I want to talk about that I personally found to be one of the best books I have ever read, and it's something that I use still to this day, is Dale Carnegie's classic How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know, my job is a very social job. I would generally interact with a lot of people as a lawyer, and also I'm just a social person in general. But one thing that I always found to have such a problem with was I had difficulty remembering people's names. And if you're anything like me, and I'm sure most people do, I had a real hard time remembering somebody's name, even if I was interested in the conversation they were saying and I was being attentive, and I just couldn't remember. And actually, in the book, they discuss, some of the best practices, using their name within a few seconds of meeting them, and making sure that you use it a few times so that you keep it top of mind. And I honestly found that really has reinforced a lot of, new people's names that I meet, and I'm able to remember them for, long periods of time, years even afterwards. The other thing that I really took from the book that I found very, very interesting and have taken it to heart, it really has changed my life, is, everybody wants to be liked by a lot of people and have lots of friends and things like that. But unless you take a genuine interest in other people, it doesn't matter how interesting you are, it doesn't matter how accomplished you are, that's not actually what builds a relationship. What builds a relationship is genuine interest, concern, talking to other people, getting to understand them, and following up with them. And it's when I started to do those kinds of things where I really invested my time in trying to understand my friends, talk to my friends, and keep following up. If they had a big exam someday, or they had a new date, or maybe they were concerned about going back to the gym, or they had a big business meeting, you call them maybe later that day, the next day, whatever. Hey, how you doing? How'd that meeting go? Or what was it like going back to the gym? How'd you feel? You'd be surprised how much that means to a lot of people, because I sadly think a lot of people aren't getting those kind of questions in their everyday life. And I feel that when you actually do take a genuine interest, and you do want to know that people are doing well in your circle, it not only makes you feel great, it makes them feel great, and it really just makes everything better overall. And I really found that forged me forward into being a better man, or a better person, whatever you follow. And I would strongly recommend it, so give it a look. The third book that I would strongly recommend is Think and Grow Rich. Now, I know that there is some slight controversy about that book, saying, parts of it are fabricated, they're not real, about him and Andrew Carnegie. To be honest, I don't really think it matters. I know it's dated, it's got some dated language in it. You have to look past that. What's in the book, if you read it and you kind of internalize it, for me, what I found in that book was the X factor. And it's understanding that no matter what, you have to follow that which you're interested in, like you are a man possessed, on fire, going 100 miles an hour. To me, that's what it was. It was no matter what, you're not going to give up, and you're just going to keep forging forward. And to me, especially when I read it, I think I was in my late 20s or early 30s at the time, and it just spoke to me in a way that a lot of other books had never spoken to me before. So I would strongly recommend giving it a read. I'm actually listening to it now for the second time on an audiobook, and I'm finding it just as interesting now the second time around, which is something, sadly, I don't do enough of, and I need to do a little bit more. But I would strongly recommend, give it a read. There's a reason it's been around for, I think, like 70, 80 years at this point, so give it a chance. The fourth book that I want to talk to, and this actually is book I was a little bit surprised that I really liked, and this is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I had read a bunch of different investing books and things like that, and they can be kind of dry and a little bit technical in some aspects and different. This book actually really talks about money in a way that I personally had never read about or even knew about. And it talks about different people, different habits, different views on money, what your goals are, and it really aligns things in a way that I think a lot of people get wrong with money. I know I got it wrong with money. And I'll give you one example. If you are solely looking to invest money over, say, 40 to 50 years, and your sole goal is to just have as much money as possible in retirement, you don't really want to day trade, you don't want to do stock trading like that, or crypto or any of that stuff, then you would not follow a day trader's advice, because that wouldn't make a lot of sense. And that's something that I had never considered, and maybe you have, and that's great. But I would strongly recommend the book, because it really does talk about those kinds of things, and things that we have a tendency to buy into when it comes to money. Unfortunately, when it comes to money, we kind of get a little silly, I think. And I don't know if it's because we all find it important, or because it buys things, or because there's somewhat of a mystique around it. Some people make lots, some people don't. Some people work hard, some people don't. And it never always corresponds. So I would suggest reading it. I really think that it's an excellent book, and I learned a lot from it. And the last book of the five, and this is not necessarily just the five, trust me, I've found a lot of other books that I found useful, but if you're a guy and you sometimes want to look more at, what is, a classic masculine role in, yourself, what can I do, either for my family, or if you have young boys, how can I make myself better, to really raise good, upstanding young men? Because that's, I think, what's very important for anybody who's the father of boys. Now, I don't have any girls, I'm not a woman, so I can't speak for that, but I do think that there's a lot of utility to reading the book, regardless of your gender, your sex, whatever. I do think it's very useful. And this book is called Motivationals. It's the 7 Manly Virtues by Brett McKay and Kate McKay. He has a website, The Art of Manliness. He also has a podcast. Strongly recommend it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. He's got some great guests on there. But this book really, for me, was one of the first books that I read that talked about masculinity in the frame of that macho nonsense is garbage. What is real masculinity? It's honor. It's virtue. It's hard work. And they really put some classic stories in there that maybe were coming of age tales and things like that maybe were passed down over either the centuries, or some cases the millennia. And I did find it very helpful, very useful, and it gave a really interesting frame of reference for anyone that just wants to know more. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm trying to convey to anybody that's listening, and I hope you are, is that you need to always be learning. You should always be reading something, maybe taking a course if you can. That way, you find these things and you can apply them into your daily life. And that's the real key. It's not just reading, it's application. It's the same thing, action is the real changer. So for instance, once you read it, you have to put it into action. Once you do that, you'll be surprised at how quickly your life can change. But you have to act, and you have to get the knowledge first. Difficult, I know, but that's what makes it important. So that's just one thing that I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking about, making sure that even if you are moving your body, you're physically getting in shape, or you trying to make those changes, you're trying to make yourself into the best version of you, it's not just one facet. There's many facets. It's almost like a pyramid. And one of the sides is knowledge. And it's really important to make sure that you are constantly learning. As General James Mathis says, if you're not reading, you're functionally illiterate. And that's true. How many of us will leave college or leave, a master's program, a law school doctor program, and you don't read anymore? That's a tragedy. You spend all this time, all this effort, and yet you're not making yourself better. So I would strongly recommend pick up a book, get to it. If you have any great book recommendations, please drop it in the comments and throw a like. I hope you keep going, and I look forward to talking to you later.